how toxic is our skincare and how seriously do we need to take this? And why, when we go from toxic skincare to the natural skincare, do we seem to not like the results? Is there hope? And what ingredients should we truly be avoiding? And how important is being antimicrobial for our skin and for wound healing and for muscle recovery? Or is all of that toxic? Today, I'm going to be going really deep about something you're probably not familiar with for this particular question around skincare. And that is the idea of silver and what silver can do for us other than just being the jewelry that we wear. I can't wait to have this conversation. I've got the head scientist of Silver Biotics on, and you're in for a treat. I've got Steve here. Thanks so much for being here today, Steve.
Well, I'm happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
So first of all, I got to ask this. You said you travel a lot because you are a bobsledder. Help me with that. And how does one that's a bobsledder become a formulator? What's that? How did that even come together?
Well, that's my hobby. My actual career was being in science. I'm a retired educator. I've taught science in high school and college, and I still teach a little college classes as well. One of those nasty classes called organic chemistry. But anyway, so as a hobby, I got into it after the 2002 games here in Salt Lake and just kind of fell into it. Now they just fly me all over the world to do races. I just did world championships in New York and probably get the bid to go to Milan next year.
So fun. That's a fun hobby. That's way better than any of my hobbies. That's for sure. So science is your background, and I have a lot of questions for you, but I want to first ask you, when I first saw your line and saw that it's silver, I was so confused. To me, silver was jewelry. It's a color. I had no idea that silver was even something we could put in skincare or in wound healing or in muscle recovery. So is this something that we just all weren't aware of, that people don't talk about? What is that?
Well, you're absolutely right. I wasn't even aware of it until about 1999, 2000. And my neighbor started this company with his family, and it was a silver company. And so, we were talking back and forth and everything else. And he knew I was into science. And so he says, hey, why don't you come by and check it out, see what you think? So I did. And I'm thinking, oh, well, this is an interesting product. And this is way back in, 2000, 25
Sure.
years ago. And he says, why don't you try some of this stuff? And it was a gel, and it was a wound gel. It was one of their first products. They did an immune support, and they did this wound care gel. And I thought, oh, all right, I'll take it home and try it. Well, I had this old alley cat, just a tabby, just a fighter, He'd come home bleeding and scratched and everything else, And he came home once and he had this scab on his head. And I'm thinking, uh-oh. So I kind of took the scab off, and I could see his skull, and I'm going, uh-oh, there's a big hole here. So I thought, well, all right, we'll try it. So I put the tube of gel in there and I squoze it in there. And in 2 weeks, it was healed, completely healed up. Skin was closed over, no infections, nothing. I'm going, oh, silver, huh? Okay, well, this stuff's pretty good. So I started doing a deep dive on it as usual and found out that silver's been around for millennia of time. You've probably heard of that adage that, person was born with a silver spoon in their mouth.
Yes.
Which was basically back in the royalty days and stuff like that. They had real silverware, and they would get their daily dose of silver just by eating and drinking with silver implements.
So it's something that people would actually eat or want in your system. I mean, I wouldn't eat it like handfuls of it, but by using a silver spoon or whatever, you would actually get it in your body, and it's a good nutrient for us.
Not a nutrient per se, but it's an antimicrobial. So what it does is it kills bacteria, yeast, and molds. And back in those days, those ages where we didn't have antibiotics or anything else, it made people really sick.
Okay, I got a lot of questions coming at you, and I'm sure I'm gonna sound a little over the place. We are gonna get into skincare, I promise you all, but this is important. You said antimicrobial, and somehow antimicrobial has gotten very commercialized and it's gotten demonized because we look at that as the dial soap or the antibacterial that we hear. There's chemicals. This is bad, and then it gets confusing because we learn, well, if you kill all these microbes, then you're weakening your immune system, and now you get sick. So help us understand what's going on there and why this is different.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, there's a lot of information out there, a lot of misinformation, of course. What happens is you put a toxin on your body, in your body, it kills microbes. Unfortunately, it kills the good microbes, the natural fauna, we call it natural fauna and flora, your natural biome. It destroys everything, which does leave you susceptible for what we call opportunistic infectors. Bacteria, yeast, and molds. You've heard of candida, you've heard of strep, and you've heard of all staph, and you've heard of all these, disease-causing microbes. Well, the one nice thing about silver, and we understand now because we've, learned it throughout the last probably 20 years, that silver does not harm the natural microbes, microbiome in the body and on the body as well. It turns out that pathogenic bacteria, yeast and molds, are actually very different from the ones that are normally on and in our bodies. And silver, up to a point, does not harm those. And I'm going to say that up to a point because we also
Okay.
have done the research that if you take silver over 40 to 45 parts per million ppms, it actually does start harming that natural fauna and flora, those biomes that are on and in our bodies. So that's why our product is no stronger than 35 ppm because we don't want to harm the natural microbes in our bodies and on our bodies.
Okay, when we talk about microbes, we learn a lot about, especially my listeners, we've learned a lot about the microbiome or what's going on in there. When you said before we started recording that our skin actually holds yeast, mold, viruses, I had never heard this. So can you elaborate on that? And how
Oh,
does
sure.
that tie into how our skin's aging?
Our environment is, full. I mean, think about this. You've heard of polio.
Yep.
Well, guess what? There's polio outside in our dirt right now. Polio virus is there. It's everywhere. And so these microbes, these opportunistic infectors, they are in our environment and we get them on ourselves as well. Just brushing by someone or somebody coughing or whatever the case might be, we get these disease causing microbes on us and in us as well. But it's up to our immune system to take care of those problems before the disease actually takes hold. And it turns out that the largest immune organ on our body is our skin. Our skin actually has an immune system built into it, has little cells that acts like an immune system for our skin tissues.
Okay. How is that creating aging or how is it damaging our skin when we have this happening on our skin?
Well, a lot of the damage, of course, comes from outside environmental sources. For example, different, even smoke can cause carcinogens and mutagens and stuff on our skin. And our skin is kind of a sponge. It tends to absorb things as well, but other environmental toxins as well. Oh, there's just a myriad of environmental toxins. But of course, there's radiation.
Hmm.
And solar radiation is probably one of the worst causes.
Solar?
Yeah, from the sun.
Okay, from the sun.
Yep,
Okay.
UVA, UVBs, even gammas, all those cosmic rays that actually get it through our atmosphere, they do. They cause damage to our skin. And over a long lifetime, they can cause substantial damage.
So this is a little bit of a controversial topic as of late, because people say, well, this strict avoidance of the sun is actually what's hurting us. But we also know the sun in extreme levels can age us. So where do you kind of fall as a scientist on the balance there? Like, I'm sure you think sunlight's important. So where is it important and where does it become dangerous?
Burns, sunburns. When you get to a point when you actually burn the skin, literally cook the skin, that's when you get the most damage. But yeah, sunlight is very important. And our systems are set up to absorb the, radiation and do
Mhm.
good things as well, provide vitamin D precursors and provitamins for us as well. So it's important to have that. But the damage comes when, of course, there's too much sun and you get those burns.
Now, when you talk about being antimicrobial, which silver and your product is on our skin, how important is it to clean our skin with antimicrobial? And what goes wrong when we go to the drugstore and you buy a commercial soap that says antimicrobial, but it's not silver? Like, help us understand that.
Well, again, those antimicrobials in soaps and shampoos and all those things, they're toxins. They are very toxic chemicals, the chlorhexidine, all those things, and also the preservatives they have to put them in as well. The sorbates, the benzoates, the phenyloxanols, those are toxic chemicals that kill microbes. They kill everything, not just
So when
the
we hear
bad
the
stuff, the good
word
stuff.
toxic, it's more, I would assume it's more than it's just killing. So if I'm hearing you correctly, like silver would kill just the things you need to kill, but not kill any of the good stuff at the doses that you talk about. If
Correct.
you use a commercial microbial with all those things that you talked about, not only is it killing good stuff that could be protective, but when you say toxins, what else is happening? Is it like damaging it further? What else? Is it just because it goes through our skin? Like what's happening that makes it toxic?
What it does is, again, those chemicals, they modify cellular organs, so
Okay.
like mitochondria, endoplasmic reticulum. And so it causes those cells to basically stop working or die.
Sure. Sure.
And some of those toxins can get into our healthy cells as well, and cause those cells to struggle, not necessarily kill them, but to
Mhm.
cause them to not work as efficiently as they probably should be working to keep our tissues healthy.
So when we hear that a toxin in our skincare or makeup is an estrogen disruptor, or so that's what it's referring to, that it's like disrupting your mitochondria, it's disrupting your system. So when we hear things like the problems it causes, it's because it's going through your skin barrier and actually disrupting normal function. Am I saying that right? Is that
You are perfectly saying that. Yeah.
okay? So this is important because I think what happens is we get overloaded with information like, oh, you have to be non-toxic. And, the story is, well, everything's toxic. So what's your take on that? Because this is, especially for women. I know you're a man and I'm sure you care too, but women, we're aging and things are changing and we're trying to use all the cosmetic products. And like, what's your take on that? Like, how important is this and how crazy do we need to be around it?
Well, I have a wife and daughters and daughter-in-laws.
Hmm.
And, they're kind of getting up there in years as well. And so I look at products and I actually kind of formulate products with actually them in mind.
Okay.
And because I want the best for my family, of course, and then the best for anybody who buys our products as well. And so that's why our products are, have organic components in them and clean components and natural components in them to keep, the health of
Yeah.
those, yeah, to keep the health well.
But so like you make a lot of great products and I'm definitely going to talk about those, but like you don't make things like makeup or stuff like that. So how do you feel about that? Like if your wife's like, well, I bought this makeup that I love or this specific, and then you're looking at the ingredients, like are you a hard no on things or what's your philosophy on it personally around that?
I get teased a lot from the women in my family because they'll show me stuff. And what do? I grab it and I start
Yeah.
looking at the ingredients and I say, this is bad and that's bad and this is not good and things like that as well. And they say, oh, you've ruined it for us, And so, yeah, I do look, and there are some products out there that I would say, yeah, don't use those. They look at this ingredient and that ingredient, and it comes from petroleum and asphalt for and mascara and tar, and I'm going, oh yes.
Do you have a feeling as a scientist, like a kind of a rule of thumb here? And because I want to be practical for women too. Like I work my best to use non-toxic for a lot of things, but there's some things that are definitely, they've got some toxins, like the stuff I put in my hair or whatever. So do you kind of, and I'm not looking for you to give me like a nice answer if you don't have one, but how serious do we need to take this? And is it kind of like an 80-20 rule, or is it, you got to really like, what's your thoughts around that?
What I do when I look at a product is I look at the ingredient list. And it turns out if you can't say some of the names and where they come from, they're probably synthetic.
Hmm.
And yeah, so
Not good for like food. The same thing we would say about food.
yeah, pretty
Yeah.
much,
So he's
if
not
it,
giving me the answer I want, ladies, but I asked him for the truth. So
yeah, that's, the shorter the ingredient list, the less natural the ingredient list,
okay.
probably the better it is for you.
So do you think, like, I think a lot of the skincare that's marked natural, a lot of it, it just doesn't work. And is it not working because it's not killing some of these bad things that you're talking about, like the yeast and the mold? Is that why we're like, what's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I agree with that, and there are some really good products out there. But you're right, in some cases, the more natural products don't necessarily work as well because the chemicals that are there are more natural and they're
Right.
more, they tend to degrade faster than the other ones with all the preservatives in it, and so my take on it is that you need to buy those more natural products more often, true,
Yeah.
because they don't have the preservatives in them, to keep them good for years and years and years.
Okay, so when you looked at what you learned about silver and you looked at what was happening with the cat and you started having this epiphany, what made you think like first like this needs to go in skincare? Like where did that, because I wouldn't have even thought to put, silver in skincare.
I didn't at first. I didn't either. It was like, oh, okay. Then I started doing the research, and I started
Mhm.
working for the company full time after I'm a retired educator. And so when I started working full time for the company, I thought, if you put silver and acts as a preservative
Mhm.
and an antimicrobial, you have kind of a dual duty going on. You have the ability to take those pathogens and destroy those pathogens, or at least knock them down to a point where your immune system can function very efficiently. And that's kind of what we mean by our silver is an immune support. We have an immune supplement, which you can actually drink, that takes care of those things inside, but on the outside, our wound care and our cosmetics that we do produce has a silver in it as well. gel, and it does the same thing. It takes care of what we call that bioload. And we all carry this
Mm.
bioload. And what happens is our immune system can be overwhelmed by the amount of bioload, and then you have a disease process. But what the silver does is it takes care of that bioload so your immune system can work very efficiently and very effectively and take care of business by itself.
Wow. Okay. That's so is there any limit to what silver can go in? I'm just wondering. Like, is there any, I'm wondering why we got so far away from silver for so many reasons.
Well, I think it was back in the 1960s, we had a regulatory body that came out with silver is a heavy metal. Well, it
Yep.
turns out silver is not a heavy metal. If you look where
Oh,
it's out on the periodic table, it's around copper and
okay.
it's around zinc and it's around, and people wear
Yep.
copper bracelets. Is that ever a problem? No. Zinc for skincare, you get the sunscreens and stuff like that that have zinc in them and they're white and they're cakey and stuff
Yeah.
like that. Is there a problem with those? No. Well, silver is right in there as well. And so where that came about, we're not quite sure. Nobody really knows, but
Okay.
they lumped silver in as with the heavy metals, like the really bad ones, like cadmium and lead
Yeah.
and stuff like that. And silver is not a heavy metal. In fact,
Interesting.
people use gold, and gold is not considered to be a heavy metal. They have gold supplements. They actually put gold in your joints to make your joints, have anti-inflammatory responses as well. So where silver got lumped in there with the regulatory bodies, we're not quite sure, but it
Huh.
tended to stick. And so we are now just coming around where the FDA is saying, oh, well, let's revisit this. In fact, we have several 510K cleared products from the FDA. We have our wound care gels in formularies in hospitals in burn units.
Whoa. This is like, I mean, literally all I knew about silver for years was what you just said, like that it's jewelry and that it tarnishes. I knew that it tarnishes. Why does silver tarnish, by the way? And how does that impact putting it in things?
Oxygen is somewhat reactive out in the air with silver metal, and so it reacts with oxygen. Well, it turns out our product is specially designed not to do that. We
Hmm.
can get into that process a little bit
Yeah.
if you
I mean,
want to.
I'm curious because in my mind, I'm thinking, wait, now everything I knew about silver was wrong, clearly, but I'm thinking silver tarnishes. Why would you put that in your skin product? So I guess, yeah, that's an important question because I'd
Mhm.
want to understand that. So I'm clear on why.
Okay.
Because
But
I'm understanding the antimicrobial, I'm understanding the wound care, and I'm understanding it makes sense to me how it's a preservative. All of that makes sense. So I want to make sure I'm clear and every listener is clear on why, because I think other people will think that same thing. Like, well, if silver tarnishes, why would we put that in our skincare? So yeah,
well, it
help with
turns
that.
out, what color is silver when it tarnishes?
It's like, I mean, I think it's like I'm trying to remember, it's like blackish or brown, right?
Mhm.
It's darker. Yeah.
Nice, very nice. You're absolutely right.
I'm thinking
Well,
of
it
like my
turns
grandmother's silver stuff we used to
Yeah, you
polish
have to
with Tarnex.
polish.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly right. Well, you're absolutely right. Turns out that what we do with our particle, with our silver, is we take pure, I mean the ultra pure silver wire, and we
Okay.
put a lot of electrical energy in with it, thousands and thousands of volts into our
Okay.
machine. And what that does is it actually pulls these little tiny microparticles off of the silver, but it's in an oxygen environment, so it actually coats that silver, that core metallic silver
Okay.
with what we call a tetrasilver tetraoxide, or just call it silver oxide. Well, it turns out that that is black. That is tarnish.
Ah,
And that is the antimicrobial part of silver, is that coating of the silver oxide on top of our metallic silver core.
makes sense. Okay, I got that. Okay, I know that your silver also plays a big role in our body's natural defense. Like you said, you have an immune support and things like that. How you had mentioned before we started recording that there's a huge correlation to why that helps with some of the hormonal changes that a lot of my women listeners are going through. Can you connect the dots for us on that?
There is some evidence. And again, what happens is that as we age, unfortunately, us men age too. And
We all
so,
do.
yeah, our hormone levels start to destabilize. And in women, it's more so than men because your systems are a little more complicated than ours.
Yep.
And you get these, what they call these hormone disruptors. And some chemicals and silver, thank heavens, is not one of them, can start acting as gets into our tissues and into our hormone producing tissues and causes changes in those. It can disrupt the production of those.
Mhm.
And silver does not do that. And a lot of it is a disease process as well. So again, we have those microbes everywhere. And if our
Mhm.
cells aren't working as efficient as they could be because they are, being damaged or being caused problems with pathogens,
Yeah.
then that creates a hormone disruptor. And so as part of our immune system support, silver actually counteracts that by taking care of those pathogens and that bioload we talked about.
Okay, you all, I was super new to silver and I wore silver rings in high school. That was the extent of my knowledge with silver. But I have not been working with all of their products, but I've been trying a few of them. I haven't had a wound yet, so I haven't done the wound dressing. I'm not going to intentionally get a wound to practice with it. But
But one
um,
thing you can do with the wound care
okay.
is it's good for first and second degree burns. And
Oh,
so if you get a sunburn, you put the wound care gel on there. Number one, it has a cooling effect because of the
okay.
gel. And number two, that silver is there to take care of any, minor wounds that the burn produces on the cutaneous part of the skin.
Well, that's good to
So
know because I think most people, you get a burn, you just go to aloe, and aloe feels good, but it's not actually fixing anything.
exactly.
So this
Yeah.
actually helps speed up the recovery too.
Yes, it does. It's that immune support for the skin.
So I have been using the Recover. I've been keeping it in my bag. I use it after my workouts. And what I like about it is it also it's like the brain connection because it feels good because it has the cooling. But how does silver help with muscle recovery?
Okay, now what silver does with muscle recovery, and along with that, it's the other ingredients. I think they're synergistic. That's one thing nice about that product is that the magnesium, the arnica, the eucalyptus, the menthol, and all those ingredients are synergistic. And so what we found out is by using all those ingredients and the silver, it actually speeds the process along a little bit faster than it would without the silver. So the silver acts again as that defense. It allows that your body cells to be more efficient in healing than what it normally would be. And it goes into the muscle tissue as well and helps that process.
So Steve, are all your bobsledder friends using it?
Yeah, most of them that I always go to races with, basically a suitcase full of product because
Of
once
course.
they found out about it and the officials as well. So my friends in Sweden and my friends in Germany, Austria, they always say, "Hey, did you bring me any muscle cream?" And I'm saying, "Yeah, I got some for you." So yes, yeah,
Yeah,
we've
I
been
have it. And I
spreading
actually
around
like the smell
worldwide.
of yours. Like it doesn't smell like some of the junk that we buy at the stores typically.
Well, again, one of the main persons that I work with is Kelly Gray, and she comes to me with this laundry list of ingredients. She says, "Can you make this work?" And I'm going, "Yeah, I'll make it work." And so she wanted this smell to be more spa-like. And
Yeah.
so that's kind of what
Well,
we
it does
did is
because typically, you put the muscle relief paint on and you smell like you're in a hospital. So it's
Icy
like,
Hot and Ben
yeah,
Gay and
yeah. Yeah,
yeah.
so that one doesn't have that. So that's nice. And then the healing skin cream, would you use that in addition to the wound on the burn, or does it matter? Like, what's the difference there when you look at those?
What we've tried to do, we've set up a routine, a regime. And so you have the wound. So you put the gel on until the wound closes. Again, it helps the wound close much faster
Yeah,
because
much
once you,
that your story with a cat is crazy. I mean, that's like a whole big difference.
oh yes, because what happens is that you get a wound, you get a laceration or some burn or something else like that, and the skin is basically destroyed in that particular part of the
Yeah.
body. So what happens is that there's mobile cells in the bottom of the skin, and what they do is they have to start literally crawling across that gap to close the gap, and then they just start dividing to create the layers in your skin for the heal. Well, if you have again those pathogens and those bacteria that are getting in the way of literally those cells migrating across the wound, it takes time, and it turns out it's a race, actually. You have a race between your dermal cells trying to actually close that wound and your epidermal
And that's your
cells.
scab doing that. That's a scab,
Right.
correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
And if epidermal cells win, you don't get a scar. But if the dermal cells win, you get a scar. And so what
Oh,
our product does is it speeds those epidermal cells so they can
I
migrate
didn't
faster
know
across the
that.
wound and close the wound.
That's why you don't pick your scabs too.
That's right.
That's you definitely get a scar then.
Yes, for sure.
Does it help it scab faster, by the way, when you do this? Like, so I don't know what the scab, what that actually is, but I know it helps heal faster, but does it help it like cover up faster too? Do you know what I'm at? Like, I don't know how quickly a scab forms or doesn't form.
It forms reasonably quickly, but what we'd like to do is we put the gel on, as soon as you get it on the wound, and we actually make sure that it's on actually even before the scab, because the scab is just basically a blood clot that's dried up and
Okay.
capped over the wound. And so, but if you get that antimicrobial gel
Oh.
on the wound first, then the healing process can speed up.
Can you put it on blisters?
Absolutely.
Wow, that's another. I mean, also all of us women get blisters from our shoes and things.
Yeah, first and second degree burns, it works on really, really well.
So you could use both actually. Then you would use the wound healing dressing and the healing cream. You would use both.
So the healing cream is basically an aftercare.
Okay.
So once that wound is closed over, then you put the cream on, number one, to moisturize and support that part of the healing
Okay.
process. And number two is it still has that antimicrobial barrier.
As we're talking, I'm literally putting it on my blister, Steve, because of course, I had to wear cute shoes and I got a blister. So I will have to report back if this helps it better. But that's probably a lot better than using the toxic other stuff that's all in the bandages and everything too.
I think back to when I was a kid, and mom would always have this orange stuff in a little tiny bottle to put on our owies,
Yeah.
and it was called methylate. Turns out that it was mercury.
Oh my gosh.
It was a mercury tincture. And I'm going, oh my, we've come a long way from
We
putting
have definitely come a long way.
a mercury tincture on our owies to wound care gels.
Now, since you said it's also a preservative, do you think that this will start happening in food, that they'll start using silver in food for preservative?
They certainly could. And we've done some experiment even with grocery stores, where they spray the water on the veggies and stuff like that. Well, we've done some tests where we've put silver water, a very low ppm, like a half a ppm, very low process, and spraying those vegetables to number one. I mean, think about this. Where does a lot of your, E. coli and stuff come from? It comes from unwashed vegetation.
Right.
And so if we were to use that sprayed on the vegetation, number one, it doesn't stay on the vegetation. It actually washes off. And that's probably another thing we ought to get into as well is if you take silver into your body, our product actually leaves the body in 36 to 72 hours. It goes it does its job, and it leaves.
Huh. How does that work? Like, how does that know to do that?
Well, it turns out there's basically two kinds of silver. Our silver is actually a true colloid, and that means that there's silver particles. Remember, we talked about that silver core, that metallic silver core with the oxide coating on it. Very small particles. A lot, I was going to say the majority of probably colloidal silver products out there are what we call ionic, which means there's silver atoms that have lost their electron, just single silver atoms. And it turns out that our body doesn't get rid of those as easy. In fact, those silver ions tend to build up in our adipose tissue. I mean, you probably heard of the story about the blue man and turning gray and stuff like that. It's called aguria. Those products were very, very high concentrations of ionic silver. And it stayed in the body and it stayed in the adipose tissues. And then the sun hits it and it turns into tarnish, basically.
I didn't realize how deep my beliefs around silver were until I started learning about this and started trying your product because I mean, I'm not going to lie. Like when I first heard about silver being microbial and like how this is antimicrobial and it killing things and how this can be used in clean products, I was super skeptical because I'm thinking, well, why would I put silver on my face? Like that's literally what was going on in my head. Like I'm thinking of tarnish. I'm thinking it's going to turn me silver. But the fact that I even thought that, it's just so ingrained in us that silver is not a good thing, which is wild. We've looked at it as an inexpensive toxic metal, and it's completely the opposite of that. It's not a toxic metal. It's actually something that's antimicrobial. It's actually healing. It speeds up wound healing. It helps us heal. It could be great for our skin, but there's just been this totally false belief around that, which is wild. Like
it is. Yeah, it's totally crazy.
And I'm guilty of it too.
There's some products. Yeah, there's some products out there that are, 250 to 10,000 ppm. I would never put that into my body or on my body for that matter as well. Silver doesn't need to be. Our particles are just really efficient at what they do at those low levels. Like I said, our immune supplement, it goes in our body, it does its job, and then it leaves.
So it's trace amounts. It's basically like microdosing it. It's a small amount, but why would we not want to be taking advantage of this? I mean, it's natural. It's going to help. There's a lot of benefits to it.
Yeah, absolutely. And with our skin, as we age, what happens with our skin? We get thinner skin. The adipose tissue tends to leave. The skin gets thinner. Well, guess what? If the skin is thinner, it's more likely that pathogens can cross that barrier and cause disease. And so why not, as you grow older, start using these products that actually immune supports on the skin as well as in the skin.
Yeah, because I'm thinking of other non-toxic skin lines. If they don't have this, the problem is you are not getting that antimicrobial because we've been told that most of that is bad, but it's the chemical ones. ones that are bad. So, but when you don't get that, you do risk having the yeast or the mold or the viruses outside of your skin too. So some people that maybe think they switched to a natural product and now they're having these other problems, it could be as simple as that. Like if you add a antimicrobial back in like silver, that could fix the problem. Is that
Absolutely.
okay?
You are absolutely right.
I mean, that's what's coming up for me because I think a lot of people go to the extreme. They're like, oh, I've been using toxic stuff. Let me go completely non-toxic. Now they don't like the results. So they go back. Right. But what I'm hearing
Right.
is like there's a total nice middle ground, especially with like what you guys created at Silver Biotics, because you're taking the practical, but you're also keeping it clean.
Exactly. Yeah. And we actually have some new products that are going to be coming out soon. We got a great cleanser, a great skin
Oh, I
cleanser
was going to
coming
ask why
out.
you didn't have a cleanser yet, because that makes
Yep.
sense. Like, why would
Yep.
you
Yep.
not? You'd want to
Yep.
clean with it.
It's coming. Then we have a new serum that's coming out. Have
We need a
facial.
hand sanitizer because that's the other one that like they're highly toxic or they don't work.
Right. And well, actually, our gel can actually work as a hand sanitizer as well.
Okay. Oh, you
Yeah,
could.
because
Oh, that's good to know.
you can, yeah, just rub it on your skin and it's good. It stays there for, like 48 hours. We've done testing on it. That it's still
Because
antimicrobial.
Because just to make sure, I know I asked you this before, and I want to reiterate. So the reason traditional antibacterial things are not good, it's not because they're killing some of the yeast, mold, or virus. It's because it's killing everything and the good bacteria too. And because you're coupling it with toxic ingredients that are now getting in your skin and disrupting things. Did I say that right? Is that accurate?
That is very, very
So
accurate.
this is like what I like about this line, you all, is it's like this happy medium. You get all the natural, but what they've done with the science, they've said, okay, silver is a natural, beneficial antimicrobial. It only kills the bad things. So it's like you get the best of both worlds.
Exactly. Yeah. The new brand, the new products where they've been formulated, and now we're doing some test groups to make sure it's working well. And hopefully in the next 6 months, those will be coming out on the market.
Love it. Steve, I think you need a whole makeup line now too, because now you have, since you didn't give me the answer I wanted around makeup, what are we going to do? So,
We're actually looking at that as well. Yeah, we definitely are looking at that.
and do other companies, is this like a unique thing to you guys, or do other people catching up with silver and adding this into their stuff?
I believe we are number one. We are number one in
Really?
the world for doing this. So there's no other markets that I know of, no other products I know of that uses this.
So what I like about it is like cutting edge technology, but it's not. It's like new. It's old but revised. Like you
Yeah,
found something that we all
exactly.
know. So
Yeah.
it's not like it's not been tested. It's just interesting. What do you think changed with how, like, I loved your little silver spoon example because people don't really use silver anymore. Is that because of a price thing or because it got lumped into toxic metals? What's your thought on that?
I think it's a little bit of everything. I think it's about education, because everybody that I've talked to, and educated, they go, "Oh, really? I had no idea."
Yeah.
And I get that a lot, more often than not. It's like, huh, I didn't
Well,
know silver does that.
that's what happened when I learned about you all. I'm like, wait, what, silver? What? Why would you put silver in a product? I need to understand this. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that is the biggest reason is there's just a lack of education about the products and what silver actually does, what good silver does. Again, some people, if you're making this, in your bathroom
Yeah,
sink or
don't do
your
that.
garage or something like that, yeah,
Yeah.
don't do that.
Don't ground up your old jewelry and do anything with that. That's not going to
Yes,
work.
yeah, yeah, it doesn't work. And our particles, they exist in a higher energy state, and they're pure. And they do what they need to do, and then they leave the body if you take it internally. Externally, they tend to stay on there for hours and hours and days, and they're still antimicrobial.
Can you just recap? I know you said it kind of fast in another question, but can you recap just a little bit of those ingredients that we should be avoiding in skincare?
Again, the preservatives out there, the sorbates and the benzoates and the phenyloxanols, those are my top three. There's some other antimicrobials, the chlorhexidine. Some people put that in their toothpaste, and I'm going, oh, I would never. Our oral care line is absolutely amazing. We have toothpaste, and we're coming out with a new one, and we have a mouthwash coming out that does amazing things for oral care as well.
So good. So if you want to see some of the stuff we're talking about, if you go to midlifeconversations.com/silver. So midlifeconversations.com/silver. I will link up to the things that we're talking about. Things that I've personally tried, because I haven't tried everything yet, is the muscle cream. I love their muscle cream, and mostly because it smells good and it feels good. I didn't know all the benefits of the silver until I'm learning as you're learning, but this is amazing. And then the skin serum. Can you tell me a little bit about that, Steve, by the way? Because I've been using it, but I know there's silver in there, but what makes the serum special here?
It's so simple. Hyaluronic acid. It's gotten a big, big news, lately. It's in all the fancy Estee Lauders
Yes.
and all those, and
Feels good.
Yeah, it feels good. It actually works really well. Well, it turns out our serum's a little more special than their serums, what I've been
Okay.
finding out. Hyaluronic acid is what we call a polymer. There's your sciencey word. Great big, long, long molecules. And so it's the size of the molecule that actually we found out works the best. We actually have two different types of hyaluronic acid in our serum. We have a very small molecule of hyaluronic acid, which gets in those cells and in between those cells really, really quickly. Then we have a larger molecule of hyaluronic acid that actually does the plumping and does the really serious stuff that hyaluronic acid is supposed to do. And so we kind of do have a dual duty of the hyaluronic acids, and it works really well. And with the silver in there, again, what it does takes care of that bioload, takes care of all those pathogens that are on the outside of your skin ready to attack you, and create that barrier to help you, have healthier skin.
We should all be using hyaluronic acid anyway, and yours feels really good. I really liked using it. It's not going to turn your face silver, as we've learned. It's only going to help support your skin because it gets rid of those bad bacterial things on top of it. So I like that about it. I've never understood, this is probably not the question for you, but I never understood why it's called hyaluronic acid, because you say acid, it's like you think of peeling or, like I've never understood how that falls into the acid category.
Well, there's two types out there. And
Okay.
there's hyaluronic acid, which is the pure chemical. And hyaluronic acid is actually a combination of two different chemicals. One's glucuronic acid and one's glutamate. And so those two marry together to form that, what we call that polymer, that long chain of what we call hyaluronic acid. As an acid, it's probably the weakest acid that you'll ever run into, but chemically, it is an acid.
Wow. So it really actually is one. It's just that's what's it's on the spectrum of them. It's just a weak one.
Right. And a lot of people actually, they marry that hyaluronic acid with sodium, and now it's called sodium hyaluronidate.
Oh.
But it's still the same thing.
It's just you think of an acid as like it takes away, and I didn't even know there wasn't an L. You're saying it hyaluronic, and I'm saying hyaluronic. So I'm saying it wrong, I'm sure. Hyaluronic acid, it just feels like a gel. It's like it's smoothing. It's
it's viscous. Yeah, it's quite viscous.
So it just doesn't fall in the spectrum of what I thought acid would be. It's
No.
Yeah.
Acid is the chemical term.
Yeah.
It's not really acidic as, like vinegar or, those types of, citric acid or anything like that. No, it's an acid by nature, but it's not really acidic. How about that?
Do you use it on your face too?
I do. And yes, I do.
That's good. And your whole family, your wife and your daughters are all using them, I'm assuming.
Absolutely.
Well, I'm going to be waiting for your makeup line and your hand sanitizer and your face wash now, because now I get it, all the things with it. So you all, I'm going to link this up if you want to check it out. It's midlifeconversations.com/silver. And I'll link up everything that we talked about here. Thank you so much for being here today, Steve, and for educating us all about silver biotics and silver. I love what you do.
Well, thanks so much. I love what I do too. I'm a retired educator, so I don't necessarily have to work, but I love doing this. I love going to work every day and saying, hey, what can we make for people?
I asked him when we started the interview, I said, if you met somebody on a plane you didn't know, and they said, what do you do? What would you answer? And he said, well, I love that question because I say I'm a bobsledder, and I think you have a very interesting biography. I love it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Steve.